This is a machine that hasn't been seen working since around the 1960s. You can use it to draw sound. Yep, so it traces the outline of objects that you put on the screen and turns that into a waveform, a sound that you can hear. It's my own modern reinterpretation of part of the Oramics machine. This was invented by Daphne Oram, one of the founding members of the BBC Radiophonic Workshop, and made with help from engineer Graham Wrench.
I want machines, rather like computers, to be an extension of the arm of the composer.
This was the main section of the original machine, the controller section, and you have to imagine the time way before digital audio workstations, way before MIDI controllers.
Drawing in on a 35mm film, a waving line, which goes up or down the film for pitch change.
This works by pulling those film strips around with a motor and sensing the lines that Daphne's painting on optically. But less well known is this part of the machine. This is the sound generating section.
I begin with a drawn pattern.
This too works by drawing in the sound. You place that slide in between the optical sensors and the cathode ray tube. That is the yellow thing that you can see there in the cabinet. In my version, I'm just using the cathode ray tube inside a normal oscilloscope, which has been turned up on its end, and I've made the photosensor circuit on a breadboard PCB that I sell in my shop, and there's going to be a whole long video explaining exactly how this thing works. It's really fascinating, and that's going to be on the Patreon, so go check it out there. And I'm going to go through all of the iterative process of how I've come up with this. And the eventual plan is to turn this into a proper PCB so you can stick this on your own oscilloscope and have an Oramics machine at home. So we just watched Daphne painting a waveform onto a glass slide. Let's paint that same waveform and see if it sounds the same.
I then can also change the pitch in analog fashion.
Well, that's pretty cool. We've just recreated a sound from 50 years ago. So here I'm generating a triangle wave and then moving the mask around to turn it into a harsher sounding square wave. Now if we take a piece of card, of course, we can just cut out a waveform quick as that and we're ready to go. So the y-axis in the vertical direction on the screen is our amplitude. So that's the voltage that is literally feeding the speaker, moving it in and out, which moves the air, which moves our eardrum. And the different way that it does that, the different pattern within the cycle of the waveform, forms the character of the sound that you're hearing, whether it's harsh or soft. Well, that's all pretty cool, but I think we can add some more interesting elements now. So let's try and get some pitch control over this. So how do we do that? Well, that line on the screen is not really a line. It's actually a single dot moving left to right repeatedly over the screen really, really fast. So every time it moves from left to right, that describes a single cycle within the waveform. And the more cycles that you have a second, the higher in pitch the sound is. Of course, that also means that you can slow it right down, so you're not even hearing audio anymore. You're actually generating control voltage patterns. And if you stop it moving completely, I can just move the dot up and down with my hand and use it as a controller to plug into the rest of my modular system and to control the pitch or even a filter cutoff. Okay, so now we're starting to build up something a bit more interesting. We've got the waveform, the character of the sound. We've got control over the pitch. I can run that through the bandpass filter that I make. Add some echo and it's starting to sound pretty cool.
I want machines rather like computers, to be an extension of the eye of the composer. Drawing in on a 35mm film a wavy line which goes up or down the film for pitch change. I begin with a drawn pattern. I think that music should be a projection of a thought process in the mind of a human being. And in this way, I get a bit lost when computers come along and taking random number tables then can give us music by the yard.